everybody. We're going to present on education in South Africa and around the world. I'm Ali Durant.
I'm Jessica Salem.
I'm Fiona Matier.
Here we go.
So to start off, we have this little video that talks about 21st century education. Okay, so from this video, I took it as education is always evolving because the world is always evolving. And so I'm sure when a lot of us started school, we were taking notes in notebooks, writing our notes, and then gradually we progressed to using laptops. I know my elementary school, iPads are provided to the students, and just how things are kind of shifting. And so earlier this semester, we looked at the Declaration of Human Rights. And Article 26, everyone has a right to a basic education. And in the Bill of Rights of South Africa's Constitution, all South Africans are provided with education, and it's up to the government to make sure that education is accessible. And and then also education has the largest share of government spending in South Africa. And the amount of money that's being put towards education within the next year is the equivalent to 46 billion American dollars, which is a lot when you think about it. So then education in South Africa, it's a little different from how we are. So there's two types of education. There's private schooling, independent schooling, or public schools and state schools. And then there's three different bands of education. There's general education, further education, and higher education. So usually it takes 13 years to complete your education degree. Well, it's kind of different because there's grades 0 through 12, and 12 being your matric year. And 0 through 9, it's compulsory, so everyone has to go to school from ages 3 to 15. And that's your general education and training phase. And at the end of that phase, at 15 years old, you can decide whether you want to do further education. And I think that's kind of strange how a 15-year-old is deciding whether or not they want to continue their education, because at 15 years old, all of us were still in high school, and I don't think a lot of us have the right mindset to determine our future at that age. And then higher education, it's more, or further education, it's more like college, and that's 15 through 18. So a lot of us would be done with college, we would have degrees. And then higher education, it's when you are 18 through, I think it's 23, and that's when you focus on getting your doctorate and master's and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about education in the United States compared to South Africa, focusing mainly on college. So in America, college is basically a necessity. We all know that you can't really get a job without it. It's something you have to do. There's around 21 million students in college in America. But can you go to the next slide? It's extremely expensive, as I'm sure we all know. In 1974, converted into today's dollars, the median American family was making $62,000 a year, with private universities costing around $10,000 and public universities costing around $2,500. And the U.S. was ranked the first globally for college attainment. And today, in 2015, while the median income has only gone up $2,000, it's clear that the cost of private universities and public universities has gone up way more than $2,000, and the United States has fallen to the 14th for college attainment. Financially, it is hard to come by. Quinnipiac is 55% more expensive than the national average private nonprofit four-year college. Since we've been here, it's gone up $3,000, but there have been no protests. We complain, but no one's really taken action to do anything to solve that. And that's extremely different in South Africa, where currently it's still happening. They're starting the Fees Must Fall movement. So these are pictures from protests that happened in South Africa in the past month or two, and some just from this week. So in South Africa, they proposed to raise the fees upward of 10% at some universities. And starting at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, students started protesting, and then they moved on to the University of Cape Town, Stellenbosch University, and Rhodes University. Similar to America, South African students are complaining that it's difficult to keep up with the cost of student loans, paying for college, their books, their courses, but unsimilar to us, they're actually doing something about it.
The police are now preparing to launch some more flashbangs as there are altercations now with riot police as more flashbangs go off here. Students are trying to resist as police try to force these students out here. We're dodging more and more missiles that are coming over. I'm going to just try and get hold of my cameraman Neil here as police slowly try and push these students outside of the parliamentary precinct. As you can see, police are now closing the gates here. There's quite some force, and they may be met with quite a bit of resistance from students on the outside.
Okay, so as you can see in the video, the protests aren't always peaceful. That kind of looks like what we've been watching all semester about apartheid. So campuses were shut down and exams were delayed, and students did not stop protesting until they got what they wanted. The country's Minister of Higher Education proposed to cap the increase at 6% on the tuition, but the students still were not okay with that and kept protesting. So all their exams were delayed, their classes are canceled. And this past Friday, the president, Jacob Zuma, came out to the Union Building in Pretoria, where over 10,000 people gathered. It was the largest student protest since the Soweto uprising. And while President Jacob Zuma never actually came out and spoke to them, he broadcasted from inside the Union Building, which was in that video that you just saw. And he said, "On the matter at hand, we agreed that there will be a zero increase of university fees in 2016. Discussions will continue looking at broader issues than fees." So the students are still protesting though. They want free education for all, like it is for their primary years. And it's just interesting to see how different it is, because in America we just complain and maybe send a tweet, but you don't really go out and protest in the level and masses like they are in South Africa. And then once they're still protesting, even though they agreed not to raise it, but still, I can't speak. Still, some students are really happy about it. One person tweeted, "I will be the first person from my family to get honors. I will be damned if I am the last. Fees must fall." Someone else tweeted, "Look at the billboard caption," which says "Make history." Ironic, because that is exactly what we're doing with the Fees Must Fall movement. So they went out there and got what they wanted and didn't stop until they got it. So that's why they're still going too.
Okay, so going off in comparison of the U.S. Colleges in South Africa, we're going to take a look at our global community and college and different education systems within them. So this is just a couple of examples that have tuition-free education. And then specifically, we're going to talk about what's going on in Europe. Right now, Germany has 150,000 international students attending post-secondary universities there. And of that, 4,000 of them are Americans. And this is all because of the taxpayers being able to pay a certain amount each year that contribute to the funds going to college educations. In Denmark, we have students now getting paid up to $900 a month to attend a university. So not only are they getting an education, but they're now getting a salary that's going to help support their way of living, their life, their food, and everyday expenses. So contrary to, contrasting of college, we're going to look at kindergarten in Asia, and specifically countries like China and Japan. And after 2007, China had a huge baby boom, so they're finding the problem of not having enough kindergartens for the amount of students that they have. So parents are now coming into issue of paying anywhere from $150 to $660 a month to put their kids in a 2-year kindergarten program, where the top college costs $102 a month. So it just goes to show where some countries really value their education system. So next we're going to talk about Australia, where 2 of my group members got to actually study abroad there, and how they've noticed themselves, as well as statistically, there's more international students coming to Australia to get an education, and the Australians are actually now exploring working and going to school and getting a double degree, where employers are paying them to get an education while they're also learning the skills and the trade in their field that they desire. As you can see, China has greatly expanded its international students into Australia, and they said in the last decade it's been tenfold the amount that they used to have enrolled. And then that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
So you guys focused a lot on higher education. What did you find about primary and secondary education? Because most people are not going to be able to go to university no matter what the cost is. What is the quality of education for primary and secondary? Did you find what the passing rate is? Did you find information on how many teachers or schools or the difference between urban and rural? What are some of the things that you guys kind of found in that sense?
Well, I know through grades 0 through 9, education's mandatory. So South African children don't really have a say whether or not they are educated. But and then when it comes to higher education, only 16% of the population has received a higher education. So, it does have to do with the cost, but it's also up to the student whether or not they want to continue, and a lot of people just don't. And I feel like that has a lot to do with their choosing at 15 whether or not they want to continue.
And also going off of that, low funding means, not as many resources or materials, or not as qualified teachers also being in place with these classrooms too. So that can also have an effect on why so many students aren't continuing to higher educations as well, just despite the money part.
Other questions?
In the younger years where they're required to go to school, do they have a common core, so to say, in South Africa?
I don't know if it's necessarily the equivalent to our Common Core, because the Common Core here is relatively new, so a lot of people are still trying to work that out. But I know they learn the basics, like what we probably learned in elementary school. So just reading, writing, math, stuff like that. So.
I don't know if your research said or not, but did it say anything as to why students in the U.S. aren't protesting like they are in South Africa?
I think it's just, I've been writing about it in my blog post all semester, how I feel like in America we don't really protest as much about things that we care about, even though we should, and they're really important to us, and we can make a difference, as it's clear that they did, but there's no actual research online.
Thank you.